Tonight's guest is Darrel Sims, the world's leading expert on alien abductions. With over 38 years of field research, he has focused his energies on getting into the depths of alien abductions and UFO phenomenon. Formerly a CIA operative and military intelligence officer, Darrel Sims has a plethora of information you're not going to get anywhere else. Darrel, thank you so much for joining us tonight. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Thank you for inviting me here tonight.
Absolutely. It's great to have you on the show. I know I had the opportunity to speak with you a few years ago, and during that interview, there was all sorts of strange anomalies. Hopefully we won't get that as much this time. I was hoping that you could share your history with us. I know that the fact that you were with the CIA, you probably had an opportunity to learn a ton of stuff about how things really work behind the scenes that many of us don't. I was hoping you could tell us a bit about what it was like to be a CIA operative and how you actually got a chance to get into that field.
Of course. My background is I volunteered I quit college in New Mexico State University and joined the war effort during the Vietnam War. I went to military police school, became a military police officer. While I was in the policing school, I and about 70 other people were interviewed by some really different people that were in suits, which didn't make any sense on an Army base. And we later, the few of us that made it, finally just agreed to go in with them. And I later found out after some time of getting a top secret clearance and other things, they finally flew us to a top secret installation. And there, after a few days after the PAL paperwork came in, they looked at us and were very friendly and said, welcome to the Central Intelligence Agency, and now you're family. And that's how I got in. So basically, I was a military component, part of a military police component to that installation as part of the cover for the operation. The basic thing is that while I was there, I was not a spy, as some people suppose. Spies are basically called JOTs at these locations where they train these people. And a JOT is a junior officer trainee, usually recruited from colleges, and usually have a background that's interesting to this company, to the Central Intelligence Agency, or they have a direct ability to speak certain languages that are very useful to the agency, and as a result, that's how they get chosen.
So you weren't like Michael Weston from Burn Notice, where you were basically, had the ability to speak 11 languages and, a ninth degree black belt in every martial arts out there, and able to take down 8 or 9 people with your hands tied behind your back.
Well, generally speaking, some people would say I might be able to do some of that. I am a 4th degree black belt in the martial arts. I was a martial artist when I went in. And when I first started speaking to the senior person who was interviewing me, I told him that I probably wouldn't be, good for their program, whatever it was. I did not know who they were or what was going on. And I said I was a martial artist and I would want to do this, want to do that. And he says, I know everything about you. Everything. You're exactly what we want. So I was very intrigued by the whole thing, and then later found out what was going on. And one of the things I did there was a martial arts teacher for dependents and for some of the personnel there, and also to people off the installation.
Ah, okay. Well, I take that back then. So you were exactly what they were looking for, some type of field officer, somebody that has the ability to defend themselves and then some. But when you said they knew everything about you, how many years ago was this?
I volunteered for the service in 1966, and
okay.
3 years in the military as a result.
How long were you in the CIA?
I was in the Central Intelligence Agency. I was in for a 3-year stretch. I got into it with them over a First Amendment issue, and at the end of the second year, the issue was so great that I finally turned the paperwork over to my congressman, who took it to Chairman Mendel Rivers, who is the chairman of the House Armed Services Committee, and he was so overwhelmed with and admired the paperwork that I'd done on the case that he took the case on personally. As a result, I was exiled to ASCOM, Korea, and placed back into the military. The idea was to get me out of country and away from any congressional hearing, and they did that very well.
What was that about exactly?
Well, it was rather bizarre because I have letters that went all the way to Langley recommending me on character and the fact that I took a bunch of young people, and one group of the martial art people I had was a bunch of the young people, dependents of these agency people, and a lot of these kids had problems with their parents and so on, and growing up and everything else. And when I finished with them in about 2 months, their grades changed radically. In fact, every one of them ended up on the honor roll at their schools. So I have remarkable records that went to Langley, which is the headquarters, and so none of that made any sense to me. And then finally, they asked my commanding officer, what is the difficulty? And he said, the difficulty we have is that different people have asked you about your faith, and you've answered those questions. And I said, well, anybody that asks me any question, I'll be glad to answer it. I said, I don't proselytize anyone. If you have a question and I think I know the answer, I'll tell you. I don't care what it is. And they said, well, we don't want that to happen. I said, okay. Why? And he said, because I gave you a direct order, and that is it. Well, that's an illegal order in the military. You can't do that. And later, I was called back in, and he gave me another direct order. He said that if you do that, I will charge you with dereliction of duty and disobeying a direct order. Again, both of those orders were illegal. And as a result, I presented all the paperwork from lawyers, attorneys, a major professor at a major university. I mean, there must have been 50 witnesses, including my military people, that never found any such complaint. And as a result, the case went to Congress, and Congress, when they saw about 2 inches of paperwork, they were so impressed that they started an IG investigation. What an IG investigation is simply, generally, it's a colonel or a lieutenant colonel at some Army base that, starts his little investigation for the IG. This wasn't that kind of an investigation. The Inspector General himself, W.M. Enemark, a 3-star general, a lieutenant general, handled my case personally.
And so after that happened, you got flown out of the country back into the military. Did you get any flack from the CIA afterwards? Did they threaten you in any way or try to blackball you?
Once you ever bring anything up against the company for any reason, you're no longer family. So those days are over. They wanted me to come back in as a field officer, a case officer, and become a spy, and I had no interest in doing that because, not that I don't think that we need spies, we do, but the problem is that the nature of that beast is so devastating to other people's lives when you understand what you have to do as a spy. I didn't want to do that. I'm not interested in doing that sort of thing.
I see. Do they kind of look for people that are almost borderline sociopathic to do those positions?
Now, I never found that to be true. I met a couple of people I thought were borderline wacky, but they were extremely intelligent. And some people like that are useful in certain types of operations. But generally speaking, most of the people I met were very intelligent, very nice, very decent folks. And most of the people that work in the CIA, as an example, are not spies. Most of the people in the agency are people that are behind desk and this sort of thing, analysts and this sort of thing. And good night, the CIA is not your biggest problem. If you think the CIA is a problem, the biggest problem is NSA. NSA is 8 times the size of the Central Intelligence Agency, and they're in country.
And it seems as if more and more the technology is working against people, not necessarily for them in some ways, like, loss of privacy, et cetera. And when I used the term a minute ago, sociopath, I didn't mean like a psychopath in any means. It just seems as if, as you said, some of the positions that are required, some of the things that people have to do, it would seem that maybe you can't really have much of a conscience unless you think that everything you're doing is for the greater good, correct?
I agree with that, and I would like to clarify something for your audience because most people do not understand this. A CIA agent is not a CIA spy. A CIA agent, an agent can either be witting or unwitting. An unwitting agent is someone that they get to do something for them, and the people doing something for them don't know who they are, don't know that CIA people are actually employing them or getting them to do it. They think it's someone else. That's a CIA agent that's unwitting. A witting CIA agent is a person who is still not in the CIA, but they are hired or directed by the Central Intelligence Agency at some level to do the very actions that they do, legal or quasi-legal or illegal, depending on where you're at, what country or whatever.
Okay, well, that gives us a good background on what you did with the CIA. I definitely appreciate that. When you went back to the military, how many times were you abducted, or when did you have your very first experience that you can recall actually being physically picked up, put onto a craft?
My first experience was when I was approximately age 4 in 1952, and the event was I'll give you the very short version of it. The entity was leaving the room, literally, and I sat up. I realized someone's in the room. And I sat up as a little boy. I wasn't afraid. I wasn't paralyzed. I wasn't having bad dreams. I had a good life. I didn't watch monster movies and that sort of thing. Nobody knew anything about aliens and space or anything back in 1952. So I'm looking at this guy, and I can't figure out why he's walking toward the wall. I didn't know he was going to walk through it, because that's how he came in. And I didn't understand why he didn't have any clothes on, since it was winter and it was freezing. So I thought to myself, who is that? What is this? What's going on? And this guy turns around. He hears me thinking. And that was really a shocker for me. And then he realizes at that point he's made a mistake. Well, while he's thinking about what he's going to do about the mistake, because it is awake, that would be me, I'm looking at him, and as a 4-year-old child, I noticed he hadn't got any clothes on, and first thing I noticed is he didn't have a TT. And I noticed he didn't have a belly button. And I'm scratching my head wondering, what is wrong with this guy?
Right.
And of course, after 38 years of investigating, it's easy to figure out if you don't have genitalia, you don't reproduce. If you don't have a navel, you didn't get here the way we do. You weren't born. You were hatched, cloned, or manufactured.
What else did it say to you, or did it make any more contact with you? Did it just disappear after that?
No, it realized it had made a mistake and decided it was going to correct it, I suppose. And remember, a lot of this is conscious memory. I've never done memory recovery for myself. Much of my events are conscious. So he came toward me at that moment when he came toward my bed, as I was sitting up on the bed and everything. Instantly, something seemed to have happened to his eye, or his eyes, or his demeanor. And at that moment, I became paralyzed. And I mean, with a dread fear that I've never felt any fear that I know of, and certainly nothing like that in my entire life of 4 years. And now, after 38 years of investigating, I realized what he did was transfer his fear to me. And that's what they do. And that paralyzes the individual. It's so overwhelming. And then as he started coming toward me, I freaked when I was in this paralyzed state. And I laid back on the bed, and I had to push real hard against the wall, and I fell in between the bed and my wall. And the worst nightmare any child could imagine happened. Now I'm laying under the bed, so to speak. Part of me is still up on the bed, and my head is wrapped up my arms are wrapped up in the covers, and my head's on the floor, and I bounce my little head off the floor, and then he lifts up the cover on the other side of the bed and sticks that large bulbous head with those large, round, black eyes right next to my face and tries to make me think that he, in fact, is a clown and that this is a bad dream.